Not much of an introduction is needed for this next deck build. It's Blue-Eyes, which saw significant resurgence with the new support almost a year ago from Shining Victories and the release of Alternative. However, while Blue-Eyes had meaningful control of the meta from late spring to early fall, since the release of Vengeance, it's fallen on harder times. So what does my Blue-Eyes deck look like in order to address this current meta? Obviously, the first cards are 3 copies of the original Blue-Eyes White Dragon. Not much to say about Blue-Eyes. Its high attack power and being a level 8 allow for a number of useful plays that make up for it not having an effect. To bolster the Blue-Eyes type monster count, I run 2 copies of Dragon Spirit of White for both its name change ability as well as its costless back row banish effect are useful tools to advance the game state in a positive fashion and increase the overall versatility of a card like White Stone of Ancients. It is to this end why I have trouble understanding why some players choose to only run 1. One early deviation from most of the standard builds, I only run 2 copies of Alternative. Overall, I don't see a lot of advantage in running the 3rd copy because the hard once per turn condition on its summons, the need to have a Blue-Eyes White Dragon in hand to initially summon it, and the fact that it can be searched for via Melody, and can be added back to the hand by White Stone of Ancients banished from the graveyard effect. It appears that one can get better use out of whatever card replaces that 3rd copy of Alternative. Here's where my deck diverges significantly from the so-called standard common meta build. Right now, the build preferred by those who play in the meta is basic turbo build, constructed around Alternative and a dump and revive strategy, foregoing a lot of the new support outside of Sage with Blue-Eyes. When the meta decks consisted of Cosmo, Burning Abyss, Monarchs, and to a lesser extent Mermaid, Atlantean, and kind of Magispector, Magician with a little bit of meta foes, this type of build made sense. Using Alternative and the general overwhelming power of the deck to simply run over the opponent, using Spirit to lock them out of their big plays from the graveyard, and you'd eventually just wear them down, if not just outright blow them out, thanks to cards like Return of the Dragon Lords. Which is why Blue-Eyes had so much success early, where only bricking really seemed to be the major drawback of that build. However, now with the shift in meta decks to a more interrupting strategy in ABCs, Metaphos, and various totally awesome builds, relying so heavily on Alternative and dumping and reviving, has caused Blue-Eyes to drop significantly in the competitive environment. Definitely not out, but now the deck in standard meta form has much less margin for bricking error, and the problem is the overall consistency really hasn't changed for the better. Also, Blue-Eyes did not possess the ability to make first-turn boards like some other decks out there in any type of overall power or consistent standpoint without pretty much relying on Soul Charge. In my opinion, I think abandoning some of the new support from Shining Victories was a mistake, for apart from the Blue-Eye specific monsters, the basis of that new support was largely centered around creating nice, solid combo strings with what really is a significant staple of the Blue-Eyes deck that kind of disappeared in a lot of respects, Maiden with Eyes of Blue. So, in this deck build, starting with the Spellcaster tuners, the oldest one of the bunch is Maiden with Eyes of Blue, who authored the first major revival of Blue-Eyes, and should really have been, in my opinion, a feature player in the second revival, because a good amount of the new support helps trigger her effect, in addition to producing other benefits from the card that you're using to trigger her effect, producing more effective combination potential as well as speed. However, somewhere down the line, the idea of running Maiden was rejected by a large number of players under the premise, I guess, that she was just too slow and there were faster, more effective ways of starting your Blue-Eyes plays. While this reasoning is certainly understandable, this change was a mistake in my opinion, both then and definitely is a mistake now with the change in the meta. Maiden is still high quality, in part due to her effect allowing her to act as an effective stalling agent, forcing the opponent to use rarer or less common resources to remove her. While some may argue that opponents can use Totally Awesome, Solemn Strikes, or another form of negation to remove her, my response to that is almost, who cares? The opponent just used a valuable piece of negation to remove a 0 attack point monster from the field. Obviously, gone are the days when one could reliably sit on a Maiden by herself early game, but that doesn't mean that she's still not valuable, especially with the new support that can significantly increase her combo potential during your turn. Overall, I think at least 2 copies of Maiden should be staple in a non-fusion or ritual-based Blue Eyes deck, and I run 3 copies. Not surprisingly, 3 copies of Sage with Eyes of Blue is definitely a good idea because it has 2 nice effects. Normal summon it for a free level 1 light tuner search. Doesn't have to be a spellcaster, doesn't have to have Blue Eyes in its name or effect. Any level 1 light tuner provides significant levels of versatility due to that search, or you can discard it from the hand to target an effect monster and send that effect monster to the graveyard and special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. Sage is definitely high quality, 3 copies. Priestess is kind of the dud of the new support with regards to level 1 tuners, for its effect is too similar to a Melody to justify running both Melody and Priestess, and with no real solid innate or generic method to special summon Priestess, its overall usefulness is limited relative to the usefulness of Melody. I find Protector to be the most divisive card among the tuners, as some do like it, but seems like more don't. Put me in the light column. Protector provides a valuable service of getting a Blue Eyes out of the hand without having to tribute summon it, and actually has quality combo potential with either one of the Dragon tuners, in addition to both Maiden and Master. In a lot of respects, this card can come off as kind of a monster version or slightly different version of a card like Ancient Rules, and in my opinion typically competes with Ancient Rules for deck space. The advantage of Ancient Rules is that it special summons a level 5 or higher normal monster without consuming the normal summon. However, Protector has more combination ability due to its special summons of another level 1 tuner from the hand. Overall, in my opinion, Protector at worst is 90% of the time in Ancient Rules that requires your normal summons because it can tribute itself to summon the Blue Eyes monster from the hand. The fact that it has combo potential with other level 1 tuners and other monsters that Ancient Rules doesn't have gives it the tip of the hat in my opinion. However, I do only run 1 copy because, like Ancient Rules, it needs the right type of cards in hand to actually be useful. Closing out the spellcasters, I run 1 copy of Master with Eyes of Blue. Master is quality in this deck because at 1 it produces some nice recursion for a card like Sage or Maiden, and has a very nice graveyard effect with significant combo potential with Maiden and decent combo potential with any other level 1 tuner sitting on the field, and meaningful combo potential with any other monster. Some players don't run Master because of concerns about having first turn play viability, but with all of the discarding outlets in this deck, and Master not having an except on the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard condition for its graveyard effect, having it in the opening hand is not that big of the deal most of the time, especially in combination with Protector. Completing the monsters, for the Dragon level 1 tuners, I run 3 copies of the White Stone of Ancients and 1 copy of the White Stone of Legend. Ancient is useful in both the capacity to net a free Blue Eyes monster summons from the deck during the end phase. Unfortunately, the summons timing does eliminate the ability to make an XZ play during that turn, but will commonly produce quality field presence and maybe even a back row pop, depending on what you summon. The Banish from the Graveyard effect significantly increases the combo potential of this deck by adding a Graveyard Blue Eyes monster to the hand, be it the original, Dragon of White, or alternative. Legend is a quality combo card for Protector, Melody, and this last monster, Galaxy Soldier. While including Soldier may be viewed as somewhat blasphemous for a Blue Eyes deck, the long and short of it is, in my opinion, the ability to easily put a level 6 Synchro or a Cyber Dragon Infinity on the field is important for this deck to increase winning probability, as well as provide another discard tool to get other important targets from your hand to your graveyard. Form of the spells, I run my typical 2 spell staples in 1 Raigkei and 1 Soul Charge. The Raigkei is obviously helpful for field clearance, especially in those scenarios where the opponent has either a board or a monster that may significantly hamper my ability to play, such as like a Vandy's Fiend or a Vandy's Emptiness. For draw support, I run 3 copies of Trade-In, but no copies of Cards of Consonance. Thanks to the Banish from the Graveyard aspect of White Stone of Ancients effect, Trade-In is almost never dead, but Consonance can be dead from time to time, and can also interfere somewhat with the effect of Galaxy Soldier and Melody. There are some people who champion the position of running 3 copies of White Stone of Legend, and then also run 2 or 3 copies of Cards of Consonance. I can see the reasoning in this, but it's not the direction I wish to go. Completely not surprising, I run 3 copies of Return of the Dragon Lords, for Blue Eyes Revival combined with anti-destruction for any dragon-type monster is definitely a great combination. Heck, in the past, this card was so reviled by some players that they actually wanted it banned. While Silver's Cry is a nice card, I don't run it due to deck space and other means to revive monsters from the graveyard. For more searching and discarding, I run 3 copies of the Melody of Awakening Dragon to search for alternative and the original Blue Eyes to increase combo probability and effectiveness. The nice thing about Melody is that it only requires a generic discard rather than a specific discard. Overall, this quasi-pure Blue Eyes deck may produce an interesting Chaos variant if Envoy of the End ever returns to the TCG, because it's searchable via Melody as well. Finally, I run 3 copies of what is becoming a quasi-staple in a number of my decks, Book of Eclipse. I think Eclipse is a fantastic interrupter for this deck, because with its overall combo ability and raw power, the draw-based restriction associated with Eclipse is commonly not relevant. If you activate it during your turn, you're typically going to nuke everything that's been flipped face down, so your opponent doesn't get a draw. And if you activate it during your opponent's turn, you commonly stop their play cold, and let's say they draw 1 or 2 cards, so what? The overall power of this deck, you're commonly going to end the duel during your next turn, so the cards they draw are somewhat irrelevant. Some may note the lack of Mausoleum of White in this build, especially the one that seems to have more preference to the level 1 tuners. Frankly, I don't like Mausoleum in this deck because its double normal summons really is not that valuable for a Blue Eyes deck. Ironically, it is much more useful in like a Buster Blader deck. The targeting effect is of limited value because it only really works well with Maiden, and there are so many other tools in this deck that trigger her effect. Overall, right now in my experience, Mausoleum is just not a valuable card for this build. For the traps, I run 2 copies of Solemn Strike to help get rid of the annoying negator monsters, 1 copy of Solemn Warning, and 1 copy of Vanity's Emptiness. For Vanity's Emptiness plus Blue Eyes with the Return of the Dragon Lords in the graveyard is certainly a pain in the neck to get rid of, in addition to if you want to bring out Stardust Spark Dragon via Spirit, and is another one of the many reasons why Emptiness should be banned, in my opinion. For the extra deck, I run the following: 1 Azure-Eyes Silver Dragon, Protection Recursion, yes please, standard for Blue Eyes. 2 copies of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, definitely have to run the boss monster of the deck. Disallows multiple monster summoning opportunities, which basically handicaps Pendulum decks, and has the ability to negate a graveyard effect once per turn. The ability to summon any light dragon synchro monster also produces some high quality versatility. 1 copy of Cloudcastle. Cloudcastle is an interesting tech monster, for both Azure-Eyes and Spirit Dragon are level 9, so when they're properly synchro summoned, Cloudcastle can summon either one of them from the graveyard, producing quality field presence and other removal options. Note that obviously Spirit Dragon does not receive its summons effect when summoned this way because it wasn't synchro summoned. Also, the ability to prevent level 8 or lower monsters from attacking on the turn that they're summoned can be frustrating for certain decks, and can be easily worked around in this deck. 1 Stardust Spark Dragon, 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, 1 Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, 1 HTS Psyhemuth, 1 number 95 Galaxy-Eyes Dark Matter Dragon, 1 Phantom Fortress Enterblathnir. This is obviously here just for the Cloudcastle combination. Number 38 Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy, Galaxy-Eyes Cypher Dragon, Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand, and obviously Cyber Dragon Nova and Cyber Dragon Infinity. In the end, I think Blue Eyes decks need to evolve to incorporate more tuner support, to expand combo play potential, to have greater levels of success in this modern meta, where the turbo alternative dump and revive version doesn't have enough pop and consistency to frequently get around the interrupt capacity of most current meta decks. Also, I think Blue Eyes need to start using some more generic combo breakers like Book of Eclipse and Solemn, instead of focusing on that turbo aspect to support their playmaking. Another option for Blue Eyes in the near future may be hybridizing with Eidolons due to its fusion ability and fusion monster versatility. However, I'm not sure about the overall consistency and staying power of that hybridization. Well, that's my Blue Eyes deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.